how do you adapt one of the most hyped comic book events of all time and deliver this? Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3 is a lifeless and dull finale that is cameo porn to death. In the final installment of a shaky trilogy, they somehow managed to outdo the worst of the Tommorowverse. There are no central characters that get depth and writing they deserve, there are very few jokes that work at all, so the serious moments and the funnier ones both feel like they're wasting your time. And for a trilogy that could have been a single film, it is absolutely wasting your time. The animation is sloppy at times, certain moments seeming to be stiff, or just bad in quality. The dialogue feels so dry it's almost impressive how bad it is, considering the Justice League Warworld film really set the bar for that. While the first film was enjoyable, the second forgettable, this film felt like a serious chore to get through. Why is that? I say it's because of one man, Jeff Lemire, the plague of the DCAU. Jeff is a movie director at Warner Bros. that got a start as an artist. He worked on Marvel and DC and had some cool artwork. However, only recently he has switched over to be a director instead of an animation lead. This was a mistake. In Jeff's first film, Tommorowverse, we have Justice Society World War II. A pretty alright film, nothing offensively bad, a bit dull and stiff maybe, but overall a good start for a new role. However, coming on to the next movie, Green Lantern Beware My Power, and the same problems stick around. One-dimensional characters, stiff dialogue, and plots that don't really engage the audience with moments that just feel strange. However, I really had some alarm bells go off when I saw Legion of Superheroes. I was hyped for this film, I'm a big fan of them, especially Supergirl. And while the animation was pretty good and the fights were enjoyable, again, another film that really wasn't that good. We had a strange cast of characters with little to no chemistry, and again, very stiff dialogue. In all these films, we either have a lukewarm response from fans, or none at all as they forget what happened as soon as the credits roll. This is not how you build a universe, DC, with consistent middling ratings on IMDb and more scathing ones on sites like Reddit. You'd think something would change, but no. After another round of mid-movies, they decide to rush one of the biggest events in DC history and completely whiff it. While the first film I enjoyed, it was mainly because of the Amazo storyline, none of the multiverse shenanigans. Simply put, crossover events are an incredibly delicate thing that has been done well in the past, but takes time and a good understanding of how each character works. However, in most events, this doesn't happen, because the time is spent on the plot solely and no character development of any kind. Incredibly simple stories told through one-dimensional characters, and the reason I suspect people love it is that they can go,
"Whoa, whoa, here I come, oh, here I come,"
and recognize their favorite character. I'll admit, it worked on me a few times, especially seeing Terry McGinnis for the Bat Fam. But I mean, if you're a DC fan, a super DC fan, simply seeing one of these characters creates an appreciation for a director who really shouldn't be appreciated for these films. Instead of having a good film with a plot that engages even the new fans, Jeff stuffs this film with as many references he can in order to get on the good side of die-hard ones. I mean, when I figured out that Jeff made all these movies, I finally started to understand why I didn't like the Tommorowverse so much. The only films I actually enjoyed were the long Halloween movies, and surprise, surprise, they have a different director. Shout out Chris Palmer. In those films, the characters Chris used matters. In Jeff's films, it feels more like the decoration, set dressing. Like he's saying, look what we got this time. Aren't you happy? Aren't you excited? This is how not to adapt a comic story. All of the references, none of the context for the casual DCAU fans. If they had chosen to represent the core story through cameos, through all the iterations of DC property over the years, like Young Justice, Justice League Unlimited, or even some past films, instead of this obscure comic book references, it would have been something for the fans who buy these films. However, I did enjoy seeing certain characters that I thought they'd never be animated, even if the animation looks kinda stiff. Outside of the cameos, the story is far more busy than any other DCAMU movie, which creates a problem for the audience, not allowing them to emotionally connect with any character. So when Diana gets rescued at the beginning of the movie, I really couldn't care. When Supergirl was mourning the Anti-Monitor, again, I skipped forward out of boredom. Everything felt like a time waster before I could see the end. In most shows and movies, there is an A plot and a B plot. A plot using the main character to tell a story, while the B plot usually has support cast moving the plot forward, providing some relief for the main cast in terms of narrative. In the better films of the DCAU, they all have a central character, even in big events. In the first film, we get Flash anchoring the movie. In this third installment, there are no A plots, no main characters, a bunch of B plots with middling cast and subpar moments. A lot of the cameos felt so pointless. Like, what use does Solomon Grundy have in figuring out how to fight the Anti-Monitor? What point is Joker here besides throwing out lines that aren't even funny at all?
Ooh, I wish for infinity more wishes.
It isn't Aladdin's lamp, you moron.
There should be intention in these choices, but this drawn-out 3-part film is full of filler that's meant to distract you from the fact that it could have been a single film, instead of wasting time on a time-traveling group of World War II veterans fighting against T-Rexes.
Miss Lane, we're just a motley collection of grunts lost in time trying to keep that pack of ugly lizards from hurting anyone.
What the fuck are we doing here? If you're the one fan of the War Time Forgot, I'm happy for you. But I'm not, man. Especially when we're spending 90 minutes on each film. And there's 3 of them, okay? 270 minutes of a worst Flashpoint paradox. In that film, we can see the pain of Thomas Wayne, the heartbreaking Arthur Curry, and the eventual Diana. The characters feel real, from Cyborg to Superman, and of course our main tether Flash, who is so unimportant in this final film, only used as a plot mover to explain how Darkseid got killed. This felt like a last hurrah of some writers who wanted to adapt the biggest story in comics, and pack it with as many cameos for the writer friends to be impressed by. The logic in this multiverse story doesn't even work, as they try to make it about the DCAU of the previous generation, and Flash killing Darkseid unknowingly by Constantine's poison. The multiverse grows geometrically.
The multiverse is expanding geometrically, moment by moment.
Which I think fate means exponentially. This is supposed to be the cause for all the different DCAU franchises. We see BTAS and others, which is kind of lame given how that show is so much older than the Tommorowverse. Then they throw out this incredibly bad explanation for why the Anti-Monitor is doing what he's doing, not making much sense to any of the fans I've encountered. I've tried to like this film simply for the fact that we are still getting full-length DCAU movies in a time where animation feels like it's being targeted. However, I cannot ignore the obvious lack of understanding of what makes a good film in Jeff. I hope he takes on a co-director or just steps back down to animation lead, because this era of the DCAU is disappointing. The good news is the Tommorowverse is dead. It is over, thank God. And I know James Gunn understands how to properly pace a story and tell a character-driven narrative. So I'm excited for all the upcoming DC projects. I hope he brings on more directors so we can have a diverse media company with many legs to stand on, not relying on simply his humor and his storytelling. Consolidating too much power will produce another Snyderverse situation. Let me know if you enjoy the films and why. I hope you can see where I'm coming from, but if not, let me know where I'm wrong.